call it 3/4 of an acre with all these areas, you got about
Right.
3/4 of an acre of production. So,
Right.
I mean, if you had a good amount of that land, let's say you did half acre of production, the greens operation, that really converts you could, if you had some people helping you, you had your greenhouses, at least one of them, you had a nursery that was heated that you could get stuff started really early, and then you could do just a straight high tunnel operation without even heat in there, and you could probably do $500,000 a year.
Wow.
If you had the place to sell it,
Yeah.
if you had all the things in place, that's
Exactly.
the potential of this kind of thing.
Okay.
You know,
That's good to know.
but and if you were to do something like selling greens to somebody like Jay in the fall, winter, early spring, and then switching over to some summer production or something like that in the summer,
Right.
that too. It all just depends on how much you're willing to spend up front, what you're hoping to return from it, and then how much you want to make a year. I've seen some growers entirely focus on shoulder and winter season growing.
Yeah.
That has been done before. A
It's
guy
usually
like
the most return, like
I mean, the one thing is you got a bit more input costs,
right.
but and it just depends on, like, how cloudy is it there in the winter?
In the winter time,
Is it as cloudy as
yeah,
Kelowna?
it's similar to Kelowna. Like
It
it's
is,
hit
yeah.
and miss. Sometimes it can be sunny. Sometimes you get a lot of lake. Depends how cold it gets. The lake will throw off a lot of. So
Yeah, that's the one.
This last winter was fairly good. Like we had sunny days, but
Yep.
I've seen winters there where it's just overcast every day. So.
Yeah, because that's the kind of the one biggest challenge that we have in this bioregion that we're in, is that if it's too cloudy in the winter, like lettuce won't do well. Like even if you heat a greenhouse, lettuce just doesn't do great. It gets kind of leggy, and it's really light colored. But there's two crops that if you have a market for, call it 3 crops you could do for salad greens. If you have a market for, you could do well without heating your greenhouses at all. That's spinach, like a full-size kale, and then like a baby kale, like a red Russian kale.
Okay, yeah.
That, if you can sell those products, winter growing is quite easy, because all you're really doing is planting out your greenhouses, maybe spreading out 2 successions with very little time apart, because as the days get shorter and going into winter, the time that things take to grow gets exponentially longer, just like the inverse of in the spring. Whereas I could plant spinach in the ground right now. Let's say it's still freezing at night, but it would germinate. If I planted a crop 2 weeks later from now, they would arrive at the same time.
Okay.
Because the days are getting exponentially longer and warmer. The inverse happens as you get colder. So sometimes if you do, let's say your first succession of a winter crop is spinach that you direct seed into those tunnels mid-September. If you call it the 4th week of September. If you wait 5 days to plant the next one, those crops will effectively be like 2 or 3 weeks apart in days of maturity, because the days get exponentially shorter and colder, that they have this wide gap between them. But if you were to really focus on winter growing, you could basically have 2 successions of a bunch of those crops, kale, spinach, and maybe a baby kale. Basically plant out all your greenhouses, and then all you're doing in the winter is harvesting. Harvesting and processing and selling. You don't have to do weeding. You don't have to do continuous succession planting. Winter growing is actually very simple. Trading off the inconvenience of opening that greenhouse door in the snow, or making sure you're knocking the snow off the tunnels, and a bit of the discomfort of working outside in the cold a bit. But on a sunny day in a high tunnel, Doesn't really matter how cold it is outside. It's going to be warm in that greenhouse.
Yeah.